Hi, I'm Aliyah Aziz and welcome to A News. Here are the headlines. Russia and Ukraine continue their heavy use of drones as the war intensifies. U.S. President Donald Trump wants to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin to ensure the end of the war in Ukraine. Germany mourns the victims of a deadly knife attack that left 2 people dead. As the Russia-Ukraine war nears its 3rd anniversary, both sides intensify aerial assaults. Ukraine reports a Russian drone attack killed 3 civilians in Kiev's central region, while Russia claims its air defenses repelled a large Ukrainian drone strike targeting multiple regions, including Moscow.
Russia and Ukraine continue their heavy use of drones as the war intensifies. Ukraine reports that a Russian drone attack on Friday night killed 3 civilians in Kiev's central region. The Interior Ministry stated that drone debris killed 2 men and a woman, with another person injured. Local officials confirmed that the attack caused substantial damage to residential buildings, including a multi-story apartment complex, 8 private homes, commercial properties, and several private cars. Ukraine's air defense forces also reported shooting down 25 of the 58 drones launched by Russia in the recent overnight attack. Additionally, 27 drones were reportedly lost due to Ukraine's electronic warfare countermeasures, which diverted the incoming missiles. Meanwhile, Russia claims its air defense systems intercepted a massive Ukrainian drone attack, destroying 121 drones, including 6 over the Moscow region and 1 over the city. Moscow authorities reported no casualties or significant damage from the intercepted drones. The Russian Ministry of Defense further stated that drones targeted several regions, including the border areas of Bryansk, with most of them destroyed over the Kursk region near the Ukrainian border, as well as Ryazan, Belgorod, and the Russian-annexed Crimean Peninsula. As both sides continue their aerial combat, the toll on civilians and infrastructure remains high, with little sign of de-escalation.
U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed his determination to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the nearly 3-year conflict in Ukraine. Addressing global leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump emphasized the urgency of securing peace.
Speaking via video link from Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump told global leaders in Davos on Thursday that he hopes to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin soon to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. He lamented the devastating human toll, describing the ongoing conflict as horrible.
One thing very important, I really would like to be able to meet with President Putin soon and get that war ended. And that's not from the standpoint of economy or anything else. It's from the standpoint of millions of lives are being wasted.
President Trump also highlighted the potential role of China in the peace process, expressing optimism about U.S.-China relations and suggesting that Beijing could use its influence over Moscow to help end the conflict.
But we always had a great relationship, I would say, and we look forward to doing very well with China and getting along with China. Hopefully China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia-Ukraine. They have a great deal of power over that situation.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stressed the necessity of U.S. military involvement for any effective peacekeeping force. In an interview with Bloomberg News, Zelensky called for stronger international guarantees, expressing concern that a ceasefire could allow Russia to regroup militarily. The Ukrainian leader also mentioned ongoing efforts to engage China in peace talks, but admitted frustration over limited communication with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Moscow rejected the idea of NATO countries sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire in the war with Russia, saying such a move would threaten to cause an uncontrollable escalation. Russia says it is open to a dialogue with U.S. President Donald Trump, who has said he intends to bring a swift end to the war.
The EU is exploring energy and military deals with the USA to avert potential tariffs from President Donald Trump. Speaking at Davos, Valdis Dombrovskis outlined the EU's approach to tackling trade challenges and fostering cooperation.
The EU is considering energy and military purchases from the United States to address tariff threats made by President Donald Trump.
So we're seeking alternative suppliers, and the US is now our largest LNG supplier, supplying more than half of our LNG. And actually Europe is the largest destination of US LNG. So we had a good cooperation over the last couple of years, and from our side we are ready to see how to further that.
President Trump has frequently criticized the trade imbalance between the EU and the US, suggesting tariffs or increased US exports, including liquefied natural gas. European Commission Executive Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis emphasized that Europe will defend its interests.
Well, we are ready to defend our interests and rights if it becomes necessary. You remember from the first Trump administration when they introduced the tariffs against European steel and aluminum, we responded in a proportionate way. So we are ready to defend our interests, but first and foremost we want to engage with the US administration.
Valdis Dombrovskis highlighted Europe's willingness to build on its recent cooperation with the US. The EU is also discussing military spending as part of efforts to enhance its defense capabilities against Russia, with cooperation within NATO remaining significant.
Thousands gathered in the southern German town of Aschaffenburg to mourn the victims of a deadly knife attack that left 2 people dead, including a young boy and another child injured.
Around 3,000 people gathered in the southern German town of Aschaffenburg on Thursday to mourn the victims of a knife attack. A 41-year-old German man and a 2-year-old boy of Moroccan descent were killed, while a 2-year-old Syrian girl was injured in the attack on Wednesday. Mourners observed a moment of silence and placed candles and flowers at a memorial in the park where the attack occurred.
The boy also lived in my neighborhood, and I used to see him from time to time, and he was full of life and full of joy. It's sick. I have no words.
Khalid Meluk, chairman of the Islamic Cultural Association in Aschaffenburg, said the large turnout provided some comfort.
This is definitely comforting. That's also something I take away for the family, especially for the mother, because there are so many people here. It's incredible. It shows our cohesion in this country.
The suspect, a 28-year-old man from Afghanistan, was brought before a judge on Thursday. He had a history of violent behaviour and was undergoing psychiatric treatment. Although his asylum process had been closed and he had agreed to voluntarily leave Germany in December, he remained in the country under treatment. The stabbings are part of a string of violent attacks in Germany that have raised concerns over security and migration ahead of parliamentary elections on February 23rd.
Massive wildfires continue to devastate north of Los Angeles, with thousands of people forced to evacuate as flames grow uncontrollably. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a $2.5 billion relief package to aid the fire-ravaged region.
A new wildfire, the Hughes Fire, broke out north of Los Angeles on Thursday, prompting mandatory evacuations for over 31,000 people. Firefighters are battling the blaze in difficult conditions, with high winds and low humidity adding to the challenge. While containment efforts have increased to 24%, authorities warn that strong winds could push the fire further into nearby areas. At the same time, the Eaton and Palisades fires continue to burn in the metropolitan area, with both fires now burning for 17 days. These fires have killed 28 people and damaged or destroyed nearly 16,000 structures. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a $2.5 billion relief package aimed at supporting recovery efforts. But billions more in federal aid will be needed, as experts estimate the total damage could exceed $250 billion. While some rain is expected this weekend, it may bring further risks, including mudslides in fire-affected areas, raising concerns about further damage.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev is urging major countries to unite and address climate change, which disproportionately affects the world's most vulnerable nations. In an exclusive interview with CGTN, he shared Azerbaijan's vision for a greener future and stressed the importance of international cooperation and innovative technologies. Here's more.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has stressed the need for major countries to make consolidated efforts to address the urgent challenges of climate change, which he said posed an existential threat to many vulnerable nations around the world. In an exclusive interview with the China Global Television Network on the sidelines of the 2025 World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, Aliyev talked of widespread dismay over the US pulling out of the accord, particularly from the countries facing the gravest climate threats. He noted that Azerbaijan has been actively pushing for greater climate action, highlighted by the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change last year.
Actually, when we became deeply involved in the issues related to climate change, we've seen that there is a big level of disappointment in the countries which have existential threat with respect to climate change. We all suffer from that, including Azerbaijan. But there are countries, especially small island states, which face existential threat. And their case sometimes was not put on the center of agenda. It is obvious that without a consolidated approach of big actors, it will be difficult to support those countries, and those countries who don't have financial resources to address climatic issues.
Further underlining the efforts Azerbaijan is taking towards a more green and sustainable future, Aliyev described the country's clear, clean energy targets for the coming years and said he welcomed investment to meet these goals. Azerbaijan's leader also noted that Chinese technologies are playing a big role in the transition.
Our immediate target by 2027 is to have 2 gigawatts of solar and wind, and by 2030, 6 gigawatts. And that will be kind of a revolution in energy mix in Azerbaijan. And I'd like also to say that the investors, which are investing foreign companies in these projects, including local companies from Azerbaijan, they use Chinese technology. So solar panels are produced in China. Now our team is working on storage capacity. And we found out that the batteries, the best batteries, are in China.
President Aliyev added that through international collaboration and the adoption of innovative technologies, Azerbaijan hopes to secure a sustainable future and inspire the world to find ways of addressing the climate crisis.
Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, says that his country is prepared to welcome UN forces into the UN-established buffer zone with Israel. Al-Shara added that Syria had informed the United Nations of the 1974 agreement, signaling its readiness to accommodate UN forces in the buffer zone, provide protection, and facilitate their deployment. He told Turkish news channel Al Haber that Israel sought to advance into Syria due to Iranian militias and Hezbollah, but with Syria's liberation, that no longer exists. Israeli forces are present near the buffer zone to monitor and respond to threats from Iranian militias and Hezbollah operating in Syria. Israel considers these groups, in quote, hostile, and their activities near the border, according to Israeli authorities, have prompted security measures, including airstrikes and military presence.
I believe that Syria today has just come out of an exhausting war, and there are many diplomatic means. And we have spoken to a lot of countries on the issue, including Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as well as all the Arab countries and all the Western countries, and there is a consensus against an Israeli advance. We are using legal methods during this time. We have sent a letter to the United Nations where we mentioned we are committed to the 1974 agreement and are ready to receive the United Nations forces to be in the buffer zone between us and Israel, and are ready to protect these forces and deliver them to their official positions.
Saudi Arabia's foreign minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, made his first visit to Lebanon in 15 years. During his visit, he met with Lebanon's new leadership, emphasizing the need for reforms to address the country's deepening financial crisis since 2019. The visit comes amid significant political shifts, particularly after Hezbollah's defeat in last year's war with Israel and changes in Syria's leadership. Prince Faisal assured Lebanon's leaders that Saudi Arabia remains committed to the country's recovery, urging action to be taken. Palestinians who returned to what's left of their homes after ceasefire reached between Israel and Hamas are shocked by the flattened view of their land. Lack of food and water has become a serious issue for the displaced, and they demand to speed up the reconstruction.
Muhammad Badr, who is 62-year-old, his wife Nidal and their 10 children went back to the rubble of their home in Jabalia with the hope to restart their life after 15 months of war. Surrounded by destruction as they sat around a fire trying to fight the cold, Badr and his family spoke about their struggle to find anything to eat, as well as about the total lack of clean water necessary for hydration and personal hygiene.
They are talking about a truce, a ceasefire and the delivery of aid. It's been 3 days since we came back. We can't find water to drink. We can't find covers to keep our children warm. We depend on bonfire all night. Wish to have some wood for the bonfire. We use plastic, which causes disease.
Badr finds not being able to provide for his family and keep them warm undignifying, as his wife described how difficult it is to navigate Gaza's streets, filled by the stench of human remains still trapped under the rubble.
I was shocked. There is no house standing. It is treason. There is nothing left. You cannot walk in the streets. Houses collapsed on top of each other. You get lost. You don't know if this is your home or not.
As families displaced by conflict returned to Gaza City, rows of tents were being set up to host them. Preparing a tent for his children, Palestinian resident of Gaza City who lost his 5-story home, Wael Jundia, described the harsh reality faced by displaced families.
This tent barely fits 2 people, and I have 8 family members. And every child of mine has 5, 6, or 7 members. I used to have a house that consisted of 5 floors. It was completely lost. And now, after being patient and homeless for a year and a half, I live in a tent. Where is the life we dreamt of?
Our people will suffer. They already suffered from the destruction, bombardment, and fear caused by the occupation. And now, they will suffer from a tragic displacement in tents. The tents do not protect from the cold or summer's heat. The situation is not habitable, but this is what's available now.
A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect on January 19th, ending 15 months of war that has demolished the Gaza Strip. However, the dire situation continues for the people who pay the price of the war.
The United Nations is appealing for $910 million as it tackles humanitarian crisis in northeast Nigeria, particularly Borno State. The region has been impacted by Boko Haram insurgency since 2009 and major flooding in 2024, leaving millions in need. Ajek Mangut reports from Abuja.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or UN OCHA, says 7.8 million women, men and children across Borno, Adamawa and Yobe need humanitarian assistance. They are the 3 most affected states by the Boko Haram insurgency. UN OCHA says over 1.8 million of these people have been forced to flee their homes and are internally displaced as a result of the prolonged violence. It adds that close to 1.4 million people have returned to their communities but lack access to essential services and livelihoods, while about 4.6 million are living in host communities facing the consequences of the conflict. The UN Humanitarian Agency says the 2025 funding appeal is aimed at helping 3.6 million of those in need. Borno State, the epicenter of the Boko Haram insurgency, has also had to deal with a dam breaking, leading to one of the worst floods the country has faced. The insecurity, coupled with the flooding, has resulted in low food production. Many farmers fear going to their farms because of attacks by terrorists. Additionally, Nigeria is currently going through tough economic times, characterized by high inflation and soaring costs of food and transportation that have further impoverished millions and led to hunger and malnutrition, particularly in the northeast. Economic reforms by Nigeria's government, which include a removal of subsidies on imported fuel, have contributed to the current economic challenge. But the government says they are necessary for putting the economy on a stronger path to growth. The UN says Nigeria, local organizations, donors, and the international community need to continue showing their commitment to supporting the affected people in northeast Nigeria. The 2025 humanitarian response appeal for Nigeria is said to be the most expensive humanitarian crisis in West and Central Africa. After 16 years of the Boko Haram conflict, the UN has warned that Nigeria's northeast risks being a forgotten crisis due to a global shift to other emergencies like those in Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine. Also, the announcement by US President Donald Trump to withdraw from the World Health Organization is raising fears about funding for the organization's response to health needs across the world. The US is one of the biggest donors to the organization. In the meantime, Nigerian authorities say they will continue carrying out air and land operations in their efforts to win the war against the Boko Haram insurgency and other terrorist groups. Ajak Mangut for A News in Abuja.
And now to technology news. A new version of a self-flying cargo drone has been developed to deliver humanitarian aid to remote areas in Central Africa.
The Wind Racers Ultra, a self-flying cargo drone with double the power and 50% more payload, has been chosen by Aviation Without Borders to deliver to those in need in Central Africa. The Ultra Mark II can range up to 621 miles, manages to stay high for up to 9 hours, and can land on almost any terrain. The drone operates day or night with minimal ground operator oversight.
Yeah, so the Mark II is the culmination really of the past 5-6 years of endeavour and experience with real-life customers in environments all over the world. So what you see is a platform that broadly looks similar to the previous incarnation, but with double the power, double the payload, 80 plus changes that increase its usability, its dependability, and from an exterior perspective, the big change is obviously the V-tail at the back, which I think looks quite dramatic.
In recent years, the British aircraft has remained functional in Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and the United States, enabling organisations to transport meaningful payloads to hard-to-reach places quickly, safely, and cost-effectively.
Daily job for ISF is going where the others cannot go anymore for the normal airlines, the regular airlines, and that's why we want to use the drone, because the access of the population and the risk of the head worker is increasing every day. And like you have some example in Mali, in Burkina Faso or in Niger, or 10 years ago we can access with the aircraft. Now at the moment we use a helicopter for that.
Wind Racers team plans to craft Ultramark 2 per day and either sell them for the same price as a family car or sell cargo capacity as a service, just like other logistics companies.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to declassify remaining files of the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. The move comes after decades of calls for transparency regarding these historic deaths. And while some files have been released over the years, many remain heavily redacted.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive.
US President Trump has signed an executive order to declassify files related to the 1960s assassinations of three pivotal American figures, John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. The move follows years of public demand for full disclosure of government documents that have remained under wraps, including the FBI and CIA investigations into the killings. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963 has long sparked debate, with official records attributing the killing to a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald. However, many Americans continue to believe in alternative theories involving government agencies or other groups. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of John F. Kennedy, has long questioned the official narrative surrounding the assassinations of both his father and his uncle. He welcomed the decision to declassify the files. Previously, he has publicly suggested that Sirhan Sirhan, who was convicted of killing his father, did not act alone. Meanwhile, the King family also expressed their hopes for the full release of files concerning Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1968 assassination. MLK's children welcomed the order but stressed the need to review the files privately before they are made public. The King family has long questioned the FBI's role in the surveillance and treatment of their father. While the order allows for declassification, the files won't be released immediately. The National Intelligence Director and the US Attorney General are tasked with creating a plan for the release within the next 45 days for the King and RFK files and 15 days for the JFK files.
That's all we have for now, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.